forward. And when you arrive in Lyon, you reach the Rhone Valley region. So the Rhone Valley is because we have a big river, fleuve, which is called the Rhone. It begins in Switzerland and finishes in Marseille in the Mediterranean. So basically the wine from Rhone Valley follow the Rhone. Okay? The vineyard is divided by two subdivisions. When we talk about subdivision when it comes to vineyards, it's just like for people who are familiar with Bordeaux, we talk about right bank, left bank, Médoc or Libournais. For people who are familiar with Burgundy, we talk about Côte de Nuit, Côte de Beaune. When we talk about Rhone Valley, it's septentrional, the north, and meridional, the south. And basically, between Valence and Montélimar, those two big towns, there is no vineyard, or really little. So we mainly divide that vineyard into both the north and the south. And it's really important because the weather here and here are totally different. Here we're already in Provence. We can hear the you can smell the lavender, you can feel the Mediterranean. We are already in south of France. Here it's pretty cold. And people are much more close. Here they already speak with the accent, they sing when they speak. Here not yet. So it's a big difference. And that has a huge impact on the wine themselves. Okay? Now we know where we are. Of course, wine is made of grapes, I'm sure you know that. So I just said that north and south are really different. When it comes to the wine from the north of Rhone Valley, we do have different grapes. I forgot to tell you. What about the white?
Meunier.
Good. What else? Marsanne, Roussanne. Wow, that's very good. Meunier, more specifically, used for two very famous appellations called Condrieu and Châteaubriand. No worries, if you don't remember it now, we will talk about it later. And Marsanne, Roussanne are usually blends. Okay? So now you are familiar with the grapes from the north. What about the south? Really different, of course. There are some which are much more popular than the others. Mourvèdre, Grenache Noir, Syrah, Cinsault are the most common. It's true that personally, Terre Noir, Calitor, I never tested it. But you know that in the appellation called Châteauneuf-du-Pape, we will talk about it later, there is 13 grapes allowed. So you are allowed to blend up to 13 grapes. So the main difference between the red wine from the north and the south is that in the north it's only Syrah and it's only what we call monocépage, only one grape. And usually in south of Rhone Valley it's blended. Okay? What about the white? There is no translation for terroir. It's a French word, and if you go to New Zealand, California, Oregon, Australia, they will all use the same word, terroir. French people get confused because in terroir there is the word terre, which means the earth. So they tend to say that it's only the soil, but terroir is much more than that. Terroir is a few criteria. Do you have any idea? Why it is important? Why, when you grow a Syrah from Rhone Valley and a Syrah that they call Shiraz in Australia, it can't be the same? Why? Because our soil are so different, and the soil has a huge impact and influence on the wine itself. If you have thick, heavy soil, you will have heavy, big wine. If you have lighter soil, you will have lighter wine. But the topography is simply for the exposition of the sun. If your vineyard is on a hill or is on flat, you will have different influence of the sun. The maturation will be different, so the content of sugar, which means the alcohol content, will be different. The weather, we don't have the same weather in Victoria, South Australia than in Margaret River or east of Australia. We don't have the same weather in Burgundy than in Rhone Valley. Again, if it's a heavy rain just before the harvest, you will have a wine which will be much lighter at harvest. If you have big, heavy sun, you will have big, heavy wine. So all those, they have a huge impact on the wine and, of course, the winemaker. Because if you make a wine and if I make a wine, let's say same grapes, same soil, same weather, same everything, we are still different. And we will make a wine which we like first. And we all have a different background, different culture, different tastes. Therefore, an Australian guy won't make the same type of Syrah than a guy from the north of Rhone Valley, because the food that we eat, the culture that we have is so different. So we will make a wine which suits our palates and our habits. During the winemaking process, there are so many decisions to be done, to be made. When do I want to harvest? Do I sort or not? Do I keep the steam or do I take it off? Do I use natural yeast or do I use chemical yeast? If I use chemical yeast, which one? Do I use vat in inox or in wood? If I use barrel, okay, which one and how long? All those decisions, they have to be made by the winemaker. And since we are all different persons, we will all make different decisions. Therefore, at the end of the day, you can have two wines from the same area, same grapes, same everything, but they will be still different because they are influenced by the winemaker. Therefore, when you have a guy telling you, I don't like, let's say, Meursault from Burgundy. I don't like Meursault. I'm like, okay, have you tasted all the Meursault from Meursault? If you tasted every single Meursault from every single winemaker in Meursault, okay, you can tell me you don't like them. It's exaggerating the example, but it's more or less like that. Okay, got it? Temperature is alright, don't you feel? New word, you will tell me what the hell is that? You have to understand that the difference between the new world and old world, when I talk about new world and old world, I talk about those new vineyards and old vineyards. Basically, the old world is Europe. So wine made in Italy, Spain, France, this is the old world. The new world is all the others. So South Africa, Australia, New Zealand, all those are new world countries. The difference is we do have in Europe a huge background and empiric observation. So we did have experiences for a long time, and we had huge observation, long time period of time. So we are able to say that in the north of Rhone Valley, Syrah is the best because they tried many other things before, and they have seen many examples before. In Australia, in California, all those new world countries, if you go to Napa Valley, you will find Merlot, Cabernet, anything, even Pinot Noir. They don't have any rules. They can make anything they want. It will be still called Napa Valley wine from California. If you make a wine from north of Rhone Valley and you want to call it by a name from the north of Rhone Valley, you must use Syrah. You can't use anything else. If you do, you will lose the label. You will lose the appellation. Appellation is a name of the area. Basically, it's more or less the name of a town, with the pub, the church, people are drinking in the pub, you know, it's a small town. So usually the appellation is all the vineyards around, and they take the name of that specific area, because we do believe that the soil you will find in that specific area, and the weather and the terroir itself will be so different than another town. And in Rhone Valley, it's pretty complicated the way they classify it, but I will do my best to explain to you. Have you heard about Côte du Rhône? So first of all, you will see in Europe, so AOC, now it's called AOP, it's Appellation Origin Contrôlée, it's control of an appellation. It means that if you want to make a Côte du Rhône, you must use the grapes allowed in the Rhone Valley. Okay, so if you want your label to be AOC, now it's AOP Côte du Rhône, and if you have it on your label, it means that you follow all the rules made by that policy. Okay, you won't see that in the new world yet. Or you have the AVA and stuff like that, but the rules are not as strong as in Europe. Okay, so you understand AOC, AOP, what it means? So in Rhone Valley, when you have a wine made from anywhere in Rhone Valley, you can call it Côte du Rhône if you have the vineyard in one of those 171 villages. Okay? And it's on three regions: Rhone, south of France and Languedoc. It's basically southeast of France, 3 regions. It's really complicated to explain. Do you follow me? If not, you have to tell me, okay? So, you make a wine from anywhere in those 3 regions, carrying one of the 171 name of those villages. On your bottle, you will see AOC Côte du Rhône. So basically, when you go to cold storage or anywhere and you see a Côte du Rhône bottle, it can be anywhere from those regions and those villages. Okay, but still Rhone Valley. And if it has the AOC AOP, it means that it follows the rules. It means that it's for sure one of the grapes that I mentioned earlier on. Okay? If you are lucky, you're a winemaker and you are lucky, you have vineyards in one of those 109 other villages. They are classified to be like higher quality. So you will have on your label a Côte du Rhone villages. The first label you will see only Côte du Rhone, the second label you will see Côte du Rhone villages. It means that the grapes in that bottle come from one of those 109 villages in those regions. Okay, region in France we have the territory. It's divided by 22 regions. So when we talk about one from Rhone Valley, it's those 3 regions. Okay, do you follow me? Nobody is following us yet. Okay, fine. And if you are even more lucky, and you have vineyards in one of those villages. So again, Queyranne, Chusclan, Laudun, they are all names of small villages with the church, the pub, and people getting drunk in the pub, okay? Same things. If you are lucky enough and you have vineyards in one of those villages, you are allowed to have on your label AOP, Côte du Rhone, with the name of the village behind, or the name of the village itself. Okay? So when you buy a bottle of wine from Rhone Valley, you have the Côte du Rhone villages, Côte du Rhone villages with the name of the village behind. Lower quality, higher quality. Okay? So do you get it?
Got it.
Got it? Okay. Now, you will tell me, when I buy a bottle which is from, which example I can give, Rhone. Rhone is much more elegant, lighter. So you see on the bottle from which town it comes from. Sometimes there's the number of the departments, 26 if it's Drôme, 84 if it's Vaucluse. I know it's uncomplicated. If you look at it, you will find if it's from the north or the south, and you will be able to find out if the wine is big, sunny, or lighter.
Assuming you know your geography.
Assuming you have Google, you have your iPhone with you and you check. It's the only way, unfortunately, so it's very complicated. But it's the only tip I can give you. Okay?
Stephanie, if I may ask, a lot of wines we only see Languedoc-Roussillon on the bottle. They don't put Côte du Rhone because we are on higher level.
So the grapes has to be, I mean, when we talk about Rhone region in France, we have to make the difference with prefectural region. So basically, when you talk about Rhone Valley wines, you have one which are from the Luberon, you have one which are even further down Nîmes. It's not if you look at the Rhone Valley region, it's not in the Rhone Valley region anymore. It's already in the Languedoc. But they are belong the appellation of Rhone Valley. They are belong the appellation of that
But
vineyard.
they don't use Côte du Rhone on the label.
Nîmes is the limit.
It's the limit. Yeah. So this is what we call the regional appellation, because it englobes everything about Rhone Valley, okay? So we get higher quality. Going down, we go to higher quality, okay? When we arrive in the communal appellation, it means that now, rather to talk about one big label which regroups many villages, we talk about one village itself, or one area itself. Now we are talking about the really top quality in Rhone Valley, what we call the communal appellation, okay? So when it comes to the north of Rhone Valley, have you ever heard about Côte-Rôtie, Condrieu, Châteaubriand, Saint-Joseph, Crozet-Hermitage? These are the communal appellations from the north of Rhone Valley. Have you ever seen a white wine from Côte-Rôtie? Côte-Rôtie white?
No.
Doesn't exist. Côte-Rôtie can be only red. So if you have a sommelier giving you a glass of Côte-Rôtie white, something's wrong, okay? It's bullshit. Have you ever seen a Condrieu red?
No.
No, Condrieu is only white. It doesn't exist in red. And Condrieu, the grapes is Viognier. What is the grape of Côte-Rôtie? Châteaubriand is an appellation. A lot of people think that it's the name of the winery. No. Châteaubriand is a communal, it's an appellation. And it's monopole. It means that the full appellation, which is about 3 countries, it all belongs to the same person. Okay, but it's not the name of the winery, it's the name of the appellation. Monopole, yes. Nere bought the full appellation. So it's monopole. Monopole, it means that that typical specific appellation is owned by the same person. Okay?
Châteaubriand is only white, right?
Only white. Châteaubriand doesn't exist in red. Impossible.
Which red is Viognier as well?
Viognier. In the north of Rhone Valley, Condrieu and Châteaubriand is Viognier. Then you have the Saint-Joseph, which is, I will say, one of, with Croix-Hermitage, the bigger appellation. Saint-Joseph is 50 kilometers from the north to the south, so you can have many types of Saint-Joseph. You really have to know your winemaker when you buy a bottle of Saint-Joseph. It's white and red. Okay? Hermitage, have you ever drunk Hermitage white?
Yes, yes, I do.
Red?
Yes.
First color. Cornas,
Ouais, un rouge, mais non.
in English, please, sir.
Sorry.
Red.
Only red.
And Saint-Péret,
Only white.
and
I will not.
sparkling.
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 That doesn't count.
Saint-Joseph, which color?
That's both.
Both. Condrieu,
White.
who's the red? Give me back the cup. Saint-Péret,
Only white.
and
Sparkling.
Red. Fine. So it's to check if you understand, otherwise it means I'm bad. So, Côte-du-Rhône Méridional, so the south of Rhone Valley, we do have the famous Châteauneuf-du-Pape, white and red. Gigondas, red and rosé. Lirac,
Red and rosé.
non rosé, rosé aussi. White, red and rosé. Tavel, rosé. Vaqueras
Red.
is red. Vincent, red. Baume de Venise,
Sweet. White.
do I have a dry Baume de Venise?
Yes.
Dry white and also red, right?
Red.
So sweet, with dry white, dry red, and sweet. And Rasto, they have 45 wine. So 45 red and red. Okay? So now you will tell the person. So when we talk about Hermitage, and you are in front of the shelf and you look between Cornas, Hermitage, Côte-Rôtie, what should I choose? You have to remember that Hermitage is always big masters wine. Even though we are in the north, we do have big tannins. It's something which is big, it's boom, it's full of muscles. It's not big on the way that you have the kick from the south, but you have massive opulent tannins. When you think about Hermitage, you should think about him. This is an Hermitage wine. It's what you are expecting when you buy a bottle of Hermitage. Lot of muscles. I love Hermitage. So this is the chapel I was talking about. When you saw the first picture, I was sitting down there. This picture I took. So this is the vineyard of Hermitage. Okay? From the other side of the Rhone, the chapel is there. In Rhone Valley, it's not like in Bordeaux or flat. Huh? When you are in Hermitage and you want to harvest, you are better to be in a good shelf. It's always like that. This is M. Chapoutier putting some produce on his vineyard, 2 pieces of jaboulé. Okay. Côte-Rôtie. So, what should you expect from Côte-Rôtie? What is the difference between an Hermitage and Côte-Rôtie? It's simple to remember. You take the same guy, big muscle and everything, so the rustic, powerful, big tannins, but much more elegant. So Sébastien Chaval dancing. Okay, this is Côte-Rôtie. That is Côte-Rôtie. So it's not too far from Lyon, actually. Cornas. Cornas, when you buy a bottle of Cornas, it's something rustic again, but it's like those meaty wines, those wines that the guy who goes to the forest to hand the big animals will drink. It's a big wine again, but much more meaty, rustic animals. It's like that. It's what Cornas make me think. It's the type of wine you need a heavy meal from the winter and some very tasty meat to go with. This is Cornas. This is the vineyard of Cornas. This is Michel Roulet. Château-Grier. Château-Grier, c'est la grande classe. It's elegant. It's not shabby, but slightly voluminous. It's a noble wine. It's the big, beautiful wine that you will find in terms of white wine from the north of Rhone Valley. It's magic. It's a bit like her.
Yeah.
Le Châteaubriand is white.
Yeah.
I was drinking something else. I'm white. Châteaubriand. This is Châteaubriand. This is what we call the Chaillet. Sometimes it's so, how do we say? Stiff. That they have to tag themselves. It's really dangerous, that part. South appellation, Châteauneuf-du-Pape. How do you describe Châteauneuf-du-Pape? Generosity. It's generous. It's a bit like him, the chef Sandro that we have in the hotel. He's very generous, knowledgeable, happy, smiling. From the south, you know, Mediterranean is very generous wine. That is Châteauneuf-du-Pape. Do I say any bucket when I say generous? You can send me cork if I say bullshit. This is what you should remember about Châteauneuf-du-Pape. The famous Rhone Galets. So it's basically those stones. How the name in English? Those stones. Some people say that because they are white, they reflect the sun, and give the maturity to the grape better. But basically, when you go to south of France and you see Rhone Valley, you will recognize Châteauneuf-du-Pape right away for that type of soil. Okay? Gigondas, as I have learned at school and actually realized, if you can't afford all the time to buy Châteauneuf-du-Pape, Gigondas for me is like the little brother. For me, it's a beautiful appellation which we shouldn't put on the side. And if you can afford Châteauneuf-du-Pape all the time, Gigondas has the generosity that Châteauneuf has, maybe less complexity. I would say it's like the chef we saw previously, but when he was younger. This is Gigondas. Nobody's laughing to my joke today.
We're quietly laughing.
Usually they're crying, being on the floor, ring themselves. Nothing today. Fine, before the tasting.
You know, it's one of the very traditional Châteauneuf-du-Pape, for example, like Beaucastel, you know, Vieux Télégraphe, you have Lanert as well, the Menu Lazare, Jérôme Q, and Morodon. That's the biggest one. Then we do other appellation like Côte du Rhone as well, produce some Côte du Rhone. L'Irac is less well known, but it's a very nice fruit of the Rhone Valley as well. And the family home and estate in Côte de Provence, where we mostly produce rosé, not far from the famous and nice beaches of Saint-Maxime, Saint-Tropez. So it's not a bad place to live as well. Alors Châteauneuf-du-Pape, it's quite unique, as Stéphanie said, for the terroir, so for the soils, and as well for the different grapes we use. Now you can see on this picture, this one is not really clear, but we will see other ones. And we have a lot of stones. It's really, really rocky soils in Châteauneuf-du-Pape.
Why the roses?
For the roses, it's mostly for decoration. Because you know, the story is you have a cryptogamic disease. You, for example, called the Rhoidium. But this cryptogamic disease on the roses is different one for the one we have on the vines. So it's just for to have something nice when we arrive. That's
It
it.
is the horse's story also, I heard. Because before they were using horse to walk in the vineyards, and they were always destroying the last one in the grove because they were making it bigger enough. So they put roses because it was hurting their bottom. So the horse were used to make it bigger around because they knew that it would hurt. It's what I heard in Bordeaux.
No, that's not a bad explanation.
Yeah.
Maybe you're welcome. Well, that's the picture of the offices. Here you have, for example, the tasting room. Because you know, Châteauneuf-du-Pape, it's a very touristic area. You have a lot of people who come, you know, from the north of Europe, Germany, Belgium. They used to stop to buy wine at the tasting room before going to Saint-Tropez, Nice, Cannes, you know, Saint-Raphaël, the famous places for beaches and vacation. Alors, that's the inside the tasting room. For us, that's very, very popular, the tasting room. The entrance. What? People just like to come and just to relax as well. So that's the picture of the plateau of Morodon. It's because in Châteauneuf-du-Pape you have mostly two highest part of the appellation. So that's the best terroir. You have the plateau called Lacro. You have, for example, Vieux Télégraphe and Lanert on it. And the second very famous plateau is the plateau of Morodon. So it's not very high in altitude like to the north of the Rhone, but it's like 150 meters. Not crazy, but
How many acres you have?
100 in Châteauneuf-du-Pape. 100 hectares. 100 hectares.
Only Chateau.
Only Châteauneuf-du-Pape. That's what is the biggest one estate in Châteauneuf.
That's you.
Yes, for Châteauneuf.
Iraq?
Iraq, 22. 22, 13 Côte du Rhône and 15 Côte de Provence. Yeah, yeah. It's not, Alors, this picture, this is very characteristic because in Châteauneuf-du-Pape you have mostly 3 different kinds of soils. The first type of soil is this, is the galets roulés. You can have until 2 meters of galets roulés, and then you have clay. That's why the roots go down to find the water. Because if you don't have the clay down to that, it will be impossible for the vines to survive. That's vines of Grenache. That's the main grape we use in Châteauneuf-du-Pape. A few pictures in the spring. Everything is managed by the family, so you will see my brother Jan in charge of the vineyard. Typical pictures. Then you will see that's old vines Grenache. That's a real and true picture of Châteauneuf-du-Pape. You know, it's a whole vine Grenache between 60 to 80 years old. Produce very, very good quality wines. That's my uncle. Alors, for the harvest, you know, by the law, we have to harvest everything manually. So we employ during the harvest like 100 people. But more than 50% are Portuguese. You know, even if in France we have like 10% unemployment, it's impossible to find like 50 people to do the harvest. So we employ Portuguese and people from Korea as well.
Korea.
Yeah. So you know that's strange, but now the family is based in Nîmes, for example. They do, you know, they do seasonal things. For example, they do the strawberry in Nîmes, then the melon in Cavaillon, then they harvest there, so you know, they follow the season.
But the water is temporary.
Temporary. We are like 40, 45 during the whole year, plus 100 seasonal workers for the harvest. Yeah. It was the people from Korea. Yeah. That's a picture of the estate. Then we've made some very big investments because, for example, if you go to Bordeaux, that's my cousin Pierre, you select the best grapes, you know, by hand. Now, as it's impossible to find someone to work in France, we invested in machines able to select the best grapes by camera. That's a new process, you know. You don't have any more people who do that. That's the machine who do the selection.
Okay.
Yeah.
How you can find?
I
can believe that's a secret.
It's a
secret. Oh,
I will show you maybe another quick film to show you how it works. That's really new. We are the only one to have this in the Rhone Valley. That's a very expensive machine for 3 weeks per year, but it does a good job. So that's my father and my uncle. That's the silent tank. We mostly use this for the aging, mostly. Not really for the vinification, but for aging. Then we have the traditional stainless steel tank for the vinification with a cooling system, you know, a system of cap punching to extract, you know, the tannins color. Small barrels, but we have much more. My cousin Pierre, in charge of the winemaking. He's packing. It's another one. That's the third type of soil of Châteauneuf-du-Pape. That's limestone. That's limestone where we mostly grow the white grapes. It will give to the white the minerality and the freshness. And you will have from 40 centimeters to 70 centimeters, and then that's mother rock. So I mean, it's very, very poor soil. That's why this, you know, watering, irrigation is allowed in Châteauneuf-du-Pape. That's why in some very, very dry year, we have the authorization to put, you know, goutte à goutte. It helps, you know, in very, very dry vintage. Yeah.
Meaning the land is originally covered by this limestone?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh.
It's not just a picture like that. It's like this everywhere. Yeah. In Châteauneuf-du-Pape. When it's the pruning. Then the important thing, you know, in Châteauneuf-du-Pape, so we mostly use the 13 different grapes, and we vinify each grape separately. So, you know, we vinify each grape separately, and then we do the blendings before the aging, for example, in oak, in tanks. So that's why it's when we have all the samples, then we taste everything, and then we decide which which kind of wine we will, we put in barrels, in tanks, like my father. All the family, most of the family is there to decide, to make sure we make the right choices. That's the barrel we use. So we mostly use like French oak. We have like approximately 800 barrels. Then as the bottling, and Rhone is able as well to supply some old vintages. So for example, we still have in our cellars like some 1961 in bottle size magnums, 1978, 1970. So that's as we are kind of a big wine estate, every year in good vintages we keep some magnums, bottles, Gérodois, and liqueur.
How was 61? Was it a great year?
It's a fantastic year, 61.
I know.
Mythic year, yeah, I can imagine. But,
How is your 61?
honestly, it's a mythic year. Honestly, that's fantastic, 61.
For Bordeaux.
For Rhone and probably for some others. For example, La Chapelle 61, it's something magic as well. From the north as well, it's fantastic. For the Rhone Valley, it's...
About the Chapelle once.
Yeah, I think it will be a nice experience. It's a 1 minute film. Are you interested to see how the machine works?
And you talk about the texture first. Then after you can talk about the aromas, because it's the last thing which is coming. It's the retro olfaction. When you test wine and you are sick and you can't smell anything, you can't test what you smell, no, what you eat. So it's the same thing. So we will go step by step. The first step is the attack. Okay, so when the sommelier do the methodology tasting, step by step, he will talk about the attack first. The attack is the really first sensation that you get when your wine touch your mouth. It's not the second is too late, it's the first second, okay? Let's try. What is the ears? We talk about the nose to describe the aromas, then the mouth, which is already 4-step, attack, evolution, finishing, and length. Okay? So now you know what is Rhone Valley, you know how to describe your wine, so we can play.